Welcome to another race analysis episode, a special one. This is from Tulsa Tough. This is the first day of Tulsa Tough, and it's been a bucket list race for me for a long time. For those that don't know, it's 3 days of crit racing in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the United States. It's hot, it's humid, it's probably the most prestigious or well-known Criterium in the United States, so it gets a really packed field, and this is the Cat 1-2 field, not the Pro 1 field that happens later with the biggest stars. Still plenty of fast folks, though. Pete, can you describe this course?
Yeah, for sure. This is a really nice, flowy, kind of almost figure eight. You ride back in on yourself over and over on the course, so you get kind of two circles. So we're going around the far left side circle square on this one, and then it's kind of high speed the whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of
should be
high speed the whole time. Sorry, and you end up finding a lot of momentum and flowing through the corners a lot more because none of the straights are quite long enough for anybody to kind of make up a lot of positions. So the course ends up being pretty. The pavement's not great, right? I would say.
Yeah, it's surprisingly actually, in the turns in particular, is where the course was pretty rough. There were some spots where if you were pedaling through and not really careful, you could end up on the ground pretty easily.
Yeah, and there is actually a little elevation in this course too, which was, it doesn't look like it on the video, but you can definitely feel the start-finish rise, I would call it, and there's some higher speed, kind of turn 1 and 2 and 3 are higher speed because you're actually coming back down from that start-finish rise.
Yeah, and this course actually this race unfolded very differently than I was anticipating. And spoiler alert here, this one ends in a crash. This is my second crash ever on a road bike, and in a big old pileup. So stay tuned for that. But I think that what we want to do here is break down the turns, each one by one. We'll go through them. Because, like you said, Pete, I anticipated after watching this race on TV and looking at everything, I anticipated that this race, it's about positioning in the turns and I'd be able to move up in that regard. That's usually a relative strength of mine. But I found that extremely, extremely difficult with this race. So let's start with turn 1 right after the start.
Let's do it.
So this is the start-finish straight we're coming up right now. It gets usually pressed up against these left-hand barriers. And then you come into turn 1, which has a lot of it has metal plates, it has a lot of bumps, it has a lot of stuff. So let's go ahead and pause it right here at the apex of the turn. So this is a rare circumstance where we actually had clear track through this turn. And usually, Pete, it was fattening up before this because I think that people would jam it out of the last turn and then the hill would start to come up in their face a bit and they'd ease up and kind of look for somebody else to do the work. And then it would fan out and get really wide. So then this turn was rarely ever taken like this. Instead, the turn was taken quite literally about 12 riders wide. Yeah,
and that's kind of, since this is the longest straight in the whole course, people get so excited about being able to accelerate into the straight and make some movement, like whether that's moving forward or attacking. And what ends up happening is it's really easy out of the final corner. And then the rise starts hitting you a little harder and a little harder and a little harder. So everybody in the back of the field is able to kind of flow forward into the front of the race. And everybody on the front is finally getting hit with that rise. And so they're fanning out. So you're kind of getting the magic of both the front slowing down and the back going much faster than the front. And this turn is pretty open. So you had options. It looks like you have options, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have as many options as you think you do because of the following 2 turns after this.
Yeah, and they come up really quick. Let's play through from here, and you'll see that you take this turn, and it follows. You can see the whole pack is kind of following that line. Oh, I wish the whole race was like this. It would have been great. And then it flows into the next turn. So it's kind of tough to do okay, I'm inside now, I'm fully going to go outside in between turns like that without causing a major disruption to the group and being unsafe to riders around you. So that was, that turn itself wasn't too tricky, but it was everything before it was difficult, and then it had implications thereafter.
Yeah, and as you saw everybody flow through that line, there really is only one fast line through turn 1 and turn 2 and turn 3. And what that means is to get out of that line, you have to put in so much more effort to make it around people. And a lot of people tried that, right?
I tried it a ton.
You'll see everybody thinking that there's an opportunity there, but the speed is so high because it's that little bit of a downhill. There really is only one line, and having 4 or 5 guys all decide that that's the time to move up makes it pretty hairy.
Yes, let's look at some examples of that. So here's a great example of what you just said, Pete, of many people thinking, hey, this is a chance to move up. But when everybody thinks that, suddenly it doesn't become a chance to move up. You can see this slowing. This course should be a 30-mile-an-hour course, but we're down to 23. So I go outside because it's chaos on the inside and to try to move up. I snag a few spots, but I don't want to be mean and jump in too much. But look at, I have to slow down, then check out that surge coming out of the turn. 600 watts every time.
And even though you're going 28 through the bottom corner or turn 2, the acceleration that happens is so much harder than just everybody carrying their speed through the proper line. And so it's a good reminder that even if you are barely offline, the power required to get back up to the same speed of everybody taking the right line is huge. It's a big difference, and you're only 2 feet off the line, 1 feet off the line.
Yeah.
So it makes a monumental difference, especially when it's corner after corner after corner like this.
Absolutely. Once again, to that point, Pete, if you look at my ride file on TrainerRoad, I went over 120% for 5 seconds. Let's look at like 5-second chunks where I was over 120% of FTP, which, honest effort.
Yeah, that's a real dig, right? Like you had to pedal hard to remove yourself out of the situation you were in.
Yeah, 90 times.
I
did it 90 times.
So that's 3 or 4 times the lap,
yeah.
That means you're spending energy.
Yes.
Just to be in the place you're in.
And we'll bring up right now so you can actually see the profile of this. It looks like the pointiest thing ever. It's like a bed of nails. So when you take those lines that compromise where you're at, and once again, as you can see on course right here, I'm doing that same thing where I'm coming through, but I'm not trying to take anybody's line. But watch, boom, I'm up to 800 watts again out of that turn.
Yep.
So when you do that over and over, it just gets really rough. Let's look at that turn when I don't get caught in that situation and I actually take a different line. So I know that this is far before turn 1. Oh, and there's a bike with a wheel.
Oops.
So that guy's fork snapped in half. I don't know how it happened. And we're bouncing around in the race right now. But we're just looking at these turns. So right now you can see that I'm positioned on the rider's right, which is effectively going to be the inside for that turn 1 that we're talking about. But I had to do that all the way back here to be able to do this because in this straightaway, it was so hard to move around because you'd get caught up in, once again, that weird fattening at the front and then speeding up in the back. But check this out. I go inside. I have to ease off because there's braking. And then I have to jam it. But it's not as bad.
Not much, right?
Yep. And then you can see that it sets me up for this turn with a totally different line. I don't have to surge again really hard here where everyone hits really hard.
Yeah, so that's actually pretty much perfect. And kind of as the race progressed, you tried many different lines through all the corners, which is like it's something you should be cognitively thinking about, is that there are always options, and at different points in the race, some options play out better than others. So this is a little further into the race, and one of the things is some people figure out turns later than others. And so you had the right line at the beginning of taking the outside and then inside and then outside on turns 1, 2, and 3. But 20 minutes later, most people had figured that out. And so then the left side and the outside on turn 1 is getting more and more crowded as the race progresses.
The point is that you're making here, it's a good thing to explore the space, so to speak, in that race and to think, okay, what happens if I go over here? What happens if I go over here? You have a lot of laps.
You have a lot of laps.
Use them, right?
And the race is going to unfold differently as people learn more things. And so if you find a line that's working really, really well, it will work well for a while, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work the whole race. Mm-hmm. So jumping back 2 corners before, you have to make a decision to try a different line 60 seconds before you're at the corner, which is a huge thing to think about, that you're going to start breaking down the course as pieces of the course rather than turn by turn by turn.
Yeah, because it's too late once you've gotten to the turn.
Correct.
Let's look at some other turns. So looking at the next batch of turns, and I say batch because they're kind of inherently linked together, you can kind of reposition in this straight somewhat. But then in this one, and I had clear track for a second. I know that it probably seems like this is common because we've just shown you that before, but it was so rare. And I actually went here and I was okay with taking wind because I wanted free track to actually see what the corners could be like when I wasn't surrounded by people. But let's rewind again and let's just go back to those turns. So if we look at going into this turn, it's just still going downhill right here. Mm-hmm. And then you have these flat turns and you have this really wide entrance to this turn. And actually, if you go inside, bad pavement. If you go outside, bad pavement. So you kind of want to thread the needle here. But I noticed that everybody in this section down at the bottom, they were kind of fattening up, and it would slow down every single lap there.
And it feels, when you are moving that fast and with the high speed downhill, it feels like you're wasting a lot of energy because you can feel the speed that you're going and you can feel the power. It takes a lot more power to go 32 or 33 or 34, but you already had the clear track, you're taking the best line, and all those corners are linked. So it's so much less work to not worry about a surge, to not worry about fighting position, and just take a little more wind and get the free track and do it exactly as you're supposed to do. You get to relax mentally, even though it's a little bit more work physically. I would probably have taken that every chance I got in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should have done it more often. So let's look at that turn, which is going to be turn 3 in some sketchy circumstances. Now I noticed that at the bottom, when I said everybody fattened up, there was this opportunity to carry momentum around them. And if you went outside here, then you could do it. But check this out. There's like street side dining right there. And there were multiple riders that ended up clipping that with their handlebars. And it was just terrifying. And you could get pinched into that. And then you had to slow down if you're on the outside. So it was kind of like, okay, this sets me up good for the next turn, but big vulnerability here. I can get pinched.
Right, and that's kind of like a gamble. If you only have the outside and it's the only opportunity you have and you're trying not to waste momentum, by all means try it. But as you saw over and over and over, most of the time it didn't actually pan out because of that building sticking out in the road, and people aren't capable of kind of reorienting midway through a corner and then reorienting again for the next corner. So it kind of throws off everybody, and then you deal with the repercussions of everybody blowing it in that 10 seconds.
Yes. Let's look at turn 4 because it's inherently linked to this. So here's that outside line where things do get a little tight, but it's okay because this next turn, now I'm in a position to be able to have some free track. I'm not fighting for the inside, and look at all these people I can pass, and I did a quick surge up to threshold. That was it.
Yep, and you put in the power at the right spot. You really wanted to get the power down as soon as you possibly could, and then you coasted past 6 or 8 riders, and you were still set up correctly for the next corner. So that's why if you can make it through that far outside line, and most of the time, well, let's say half the time it works, half the time it doesn't, but that's where the benefit lies. Where
ooh, that was tight.
if you can make it through without being squeezed too much, it does pay benefits overall, but you have to decide when it's worth it to try for it, and depending on how everybody's handling those next couple corners too, because you could have very easily been smashed against the wall if it fattened up again and nobody wanted to work.
Yep, and it meant that you could just kind of carry on and carry that momentum into the next turns there, but that did mean that you ended up pinching at turn 6 on the inside, and that bit me quite a few times. Man, this race is sketchy. I'm like getting just
flashbacks.
Yeah. There's PTSD in here. So let's look at some other turns. Okay, so now we're going to roll into these turns like we're talking about. We're once again going into that turn 3, going into turn 4. But look, I'm on the other side of the field, and I'm going to take a different line. But you'll see that it's a lot tougher to move up because I don't have that outside line where I'm shielded and I can just carry that momentum up because everybody pinches and slows down on the inside.
Mm-hmm. And knowing that the following turn is always more spread out than the turn you're in, you can kind of preemptively anticipate that you're going to have to either do more work or not any work at all. If it's going to fatten up, I think you made the exact right call where you take the inside line, you don't accelerate out, and you know it's going to fatten up. So you actually just saved your position and you didn't use any energy. So you're in the same spot overall, but it's one of those ones where you have to know or at least anticipate what the next corner is going to feel like while you're taking the corner before that, or else you're going to get into trouble.
And now I'm totally boxed, and I should have carried more momentum up the inside on that straightaway. Lots of things I could have done to that. Preservation of momentum is so important. So now let's look at some different turns. So coming into turn 7, because really turns 7 and 8, this straightaway we're in right now was kind of like a reset point, and 7 and 8 were absolutely linked together. And on final lap, many turns are linked together. But I'm on the inside here. So I'm want to explore the outside, but here I am on the inside. And it allowed me to kind of choose my line coming through here a whole lot better. And we'll see in a bit, I also have more options right here. Now, I should have pushed through and gotten to the right of that rider. But Pete, what are your thoughts on those ones?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about setting up for the start-finish straight, because like we talked about earlier, if you're pushed all the way to the left, you really only have one option. But if you're taking the inside line on those last two corners, which is not very, I would say arguably the same speed as the outside, but you have more options. So you can play with where you're coming out and whether you're going to make a big effort on the start-finish straight or not. And it's good to think about that inside versus outside is the same cost, but you have different opportunities if you're on the outside versus on the inside. And so I think your idea to explore more through both of those corners, you figured out a lot more over the course of the race by taking both inside and outside and what that meant to your next 30 seconds or next 45 seconds of the race, right?
Yeah, I just didn't carry it through the straights, gosh darn it. So let's go to an example of when I was outside, like you're talking about. So let's look at this. Now I'm coming into this turn 7, this straightaway, and I'm positioned to the outside. And I'm thinking I'm going to carry momentum around some riders, and it'll work out really well. The barriers are pushed out pretty far, but it's really rough pavement. But they carried a lot of speed. And then check out what, oh, yikes, that was sketchy. Check out what happens here. I'm up against the side, and I don't really have many options. And you'll see that right there, I probably could have cut across. I didn't want to be dangerous to the other riders. So you just kind of get stuck up against the side. Now, if you watch the full race video, you'll see there are times when I am literally on the feet, and my hand and my lever was rubbing the barriers because I was so pinched. And that's the danger of that one, right?
Yep.
This is a rare moment where it's stretched out and you have options, and we saw this before where I went to the front. But in almost every other lap, I never had that.
And it really depends on if a lot of the people on the outside were choosing to accelerate. They thought that was the line where you could make something of it. So when you see the riders taking the outside line and really accelerating out of it, you also know that you'll probably have to make that effort too. Versus the inside where you had options and you didn't have to make an effort if you didn't want to. But on the outside, especially if the race is going fast, if you can feel the momentum, you're going to have to do a lot of work to maintain, and it might pay dividends at the end when people start cutting in for the corner. But sometimes it doesn't. Like you said, your hand is just against the barriers, and that's your life.
Yeah. So this has been a great example of a course. Number one, it's constantly turning, so the turns are very consequential. But a good example of this is how you should think about the course when you're in it, right? Thinking of, okay, where are all the different options I can take, and what are their implications in the next turn, and what are the implications in the few turns before? And if you do that, that can help you kind of unlock positioning, right, Pete?
Right, and I think that's a great way to think about it. Most, especially technical courses, you don't unlock a corner. You unlock a piece of the race, right? You unlock a couple corners or a straightaway in a corner. Maybe there's bad pavement, maybe there's positioning, maybe there's speed. But a lot of it you kind of take in bite-sized chunks and do the best with what you have with that chunk, because you can't make any crazy new decisions halfway through it. You're committed on a line, or you're committed based on what everybody else is doing. That's it. So as you started to unlock each piece of this race, you got to see each time it made differences later down that stretch, or later in a corner, or things like that. So the decisions you're making early actually have implications down the line.
Absolutely. So what I learned in this one is that turns 1 and 2 were connected, turns 3, 4, 5, and 6 were connected, and then turns 7 and 8 were connected. Mm-hmm. Different speed and different pack dynamics, they could become more connected than others. But that's what I learned from this one. So this is just a short look at this race. And if you look into this YouTube playlist, you'll also see that we have another look at this race where Pete and I break down some more of the race itself. And then, of course, you can also see the full race video, and you can check that out as well. So thanks, Pete. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah. I'm glad you got to participate in Tulsa Tough.
Yeah, me too. Oh, and if you're listening to this, you should let me know what I did wrong. So go down or what I did well. But let's admit it, I did a lot of things wrong here. So you can check that out as we go through here and we play out the final crash, so you can see that. Ugh. Check out the other videos if you haven't seen it yet.